You know that feeling when you lock eyes with someone and there's just this spark? That's what happened with Marisa on the bus that day. Smoking hot Latina, curves in all the right places. I could barely keep my cool as we started chatting. "You live around here?" she asked, flashing those pouty lips. "Yeah, over at the Marina Palms Apartments," I replied, trying not to stare too hard. "You same place?" Actually, Marisa flashed a devilish grin. "We should hang out sometime, get to know each other better." My heart damn near stopped. This stunner wanted to chill. With me? For sure, I'm down whenever I managed. We exchanged numbers, my hands shaking like a damn teenager as I typed hers in. Living in this beach town resort was already crazy, but landing a potential thing with Marisa felt unreal. A few days later, Marisa hit me up to come over and chill at her place. You know I wasn't going to say no to that. I headed to her apartment at Marina Palms, my stomach doing flips the whole way there. When she opened the door in just a thin tank top and shorts, I almost melted. "Hey guapo, come on in," she purred with that accent that drove me wild. We were just kicking it on the couch, making small talk and taking little sips of our drinks. But the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every brush of her thigh against mine sent shivers down my spine. Then there was a hard knock at the door. Marisa rolled her eyes but didn't seem too fazed. She opened it to reveal a straight-up giant of a dude, a Mexican bodybuilder type, easily 6'A" and 250 pounds of solid muscle. "Can't stay long, just needed to grab something," he grunted in a deep voice. Marisa shook her head. "You're always working, Julio. Why don't you come in for once?" But Julio just said, "Maybe next time," and turned to leave. As the door closed, I arched an eyebrow at Marisa. She shrugged it off, "Just my dumbass brother." Now, where were we? Marisa didn't seem too concerned about her bodybuilder brother Julio, so I tried not to dwell on it either. We settled back on the couch and she lit up a joint. "Relax, papi," she said, passing it to me after taking a hit. "Let's get nice and calm." I have to admit, my mind was put at ease after a few puffs of that good sticky icky. Marisa and I were laughing like old friends, feeling cada vez más cómodos around each other. That's when there was another hard knock at the door. Marisa's face fell and she whispered, "Shit, not again." She jerked her head toward the door. "Can you get that, baby?" I gave her a puzzled look, but didn't question it. I figured she was just trying to avoid her brother. I got up and undid the chain lock, pulling the door open. The next thing I knew, Julio was barging in like a raging bull, slamming into me with that rock-solid body of his. I crashed backwards into the hallway table, scattering papers and trinkets everywhere. "Que chingados," I gasped, trying to get my bearings. But the bodybuilder had me by the collar before I could blink. Julio's meaty paw was bunched in the front of my shirt, our faces just inches apart. The dude's nostrils were flaring, his jawline twitching with barely contained rage. "Who the hell are you?" he growled, cold eyes boring into me. "And what are you doing at my sister's place?" I'm just a friend, man," I stammered, hands up in surrender. "We met the other day, and we're just hanging out." Julio glanced over at Marisa, who had gone pale and quiet in the corner. His face twisted in disgust. "You need to leave." Now he rumbled, giving me a hard shove backwards. "Before I make you leave." I could only nod frantically, nearly tripping over my own feet to get out the door. Was this guy serious? All because I was kicking it with his sister? Julio jutted his chin toward the nearby stairwell. "You got an apartment here or what?" "Why, yeah. 205, I replied quickly, wanting nothing more than to get the hell away from this psycho. He curled his thick lip in obvious distaste. "Then get going, pendejo. And don't let me catch you round Marisa again." With that, Julio turned and stormed back inside, slamming the door in my face. My heart was thundering as I hightailed it toward my own place. Just what had I gotten myself into? I was practically sprinting down the hall, desperate to put distance between me and that meathead Julio. My mind was racing almost as fast as my feet. What the hell was his problem? Marisa and I were just hanging out, smoking a little weed. It wasn't like we were doing anything crazy. I was so frazzled that I didn't even notice the large cooler sitting in front of Marisa's door until I had already tripped right over the damn thing. My legs went flying out from under me, and I landed flat on my back with a heavy thud, the wind getting knocked clean out of me. "Ho, you okay there, bro?" I rolled my head to see Dave, this scruffy older dude who lived across the hall, rushing over with a look of concern. He was a bit of an odd bird, but seemed pretty chill from my limited interactions with him. "Yeah, man, I'm cool," I groaned, waving him off as I slowly sat up. "Just ate shit over this stupid cooler." Dave scratched his scraggly beard, glancing over at the closed door to Marisa's place. "Damn, you run into her bro again? Julio seems pissed." My eyes went wide. "Wait, you know about that guy?" "Know about him?" Dave let out a hearty laugh. "Everybody around here knows Julio. That crazy son of a bitch is the biggest coke supplier in town." I felt my stomach drop to my feet. A coke dealer? One with serious rage issues? I was suddenly very grateful to have made it out of that situation alive. After that run-in with Julio, Dave quickly became my go-to guy for intel on the scary bodybuilder coke dealer. Turned out the dude was pretty much the kingpin supplier for all the smaller slingers operating around the resort area. That crazy bastard doesn't play around, Dave warned me one day as we smoked a joint together. "If you get on Julio's bad side, you're as good as dead, bro." A chill went down my spine. I had clearly pissed the dude off just by being at his sister's place. Who knew how he'd react if he thought I was causing Marisa any real trouble? From then on, I was constantly on edge anytime I left my apartment. I'd scan the parking lot, hallways, even the damn laundry room for any sign of Julio. The last thing I wanted was another explosive confrontation with a man built like a pit bull on steroids. A few times I did catch glimpses of the guy stomping around the complex, that permanent scowl etched on his mug. He actually lived just a few doors down from Marisa. I'd quickly avert my eyes and scuttle away, praying he didn't notice me. I kept my head down and stayed out of trouble for a while after that. But you can only tempt fate for so long in a place like Marina Palms before it inevitably catches up with you. Things had been relatively calm for a few weeks after my unfortunate run-in with Julio. I was laying low, staying off that psycho's radar. But you can only avoid trouble for so long in a place like Marina Palms before it comes knocking. I was just trying to grab a late-night Gatorade from the vending machines down the hall when I turned the corner and suddenly found myself surrounded. 4 or 5 heavily inked Mexican dudes, all muscled up and looking very UN chill, had formed a tight circle around me. Well, if it isn't the little gringo that's been sniffing around Julio's sister," one of them sneered in a thick accent, stepping forward menacingly. My mouth went dry as I started putting the pieces together. These must have been some of Julio's crew, his workers or enforcers or whatever you want to call them. "Look, man, I don't want no trouble," I began, but the dude cut me off with a harsh shove that sent me stumbling backwards. "Should have thought about that before you started running your boca out on Marisa," pendejo, he spat, the others slowly closing the circle tighter. I felt a shove from behind, then another hard shove to my chest that almost knocked me over. They were taking turns roughing me up, like a gang of bullies on the goddamn playground. "Please, I barely even know her." "It was nothing, I swear," I pleaded, my voice going up an octave as the shoves became harder. Just then, a deafening roar of "Que chingada está pasando aquí" ripped through the hallway. The circle parted and there was Julio, fury radiating off his hulking frame as he stormed toward us. Julio looked every bit the raging beast as he barreled down the hallway, the vein in his bulging neck damn near throbbing. His nostrils were flared, fists clenched so tight the knuckles were white as a ghost. The goons who'd been shoving me around immediately shrank back, their tough guy acts evaporating under the heat of Julio's glare. I could have sworn a couple of them were actually trembling. "Jafi. Este gringo porco," one of them started to explain, but Julio cut him off with a venomous look. "Calate la pinche boca," he roared, spittle flying. He turned his scorching gaze on me, those cold black eyes boring into my soul. For a moment, I wondered if this was finally it. If the infamous Julio, the man who could supply half of Miami's cocaine with the amount he slung, was about to straight up murder me right here. Over what, I still had no idea. but the way he was looking at me, you'd think I'd just killed his mama. The hulking coke kingpin started stalking forward, fists clenched, knuckles bulging. The goons all shrank away, leaving me suddenly alone in his path of destruction. "You just can't stay away. Can you, pendejo?" Julio growled, stopping just a few feet away. "Even when I give you chance after chance." He took another step forward, hands shooting out towards me. This was it. I was a dead man walking. Time seemed to stop as Julio's tree trunk arms extended towards me. I braced myself for the beating that was surely coming, wanting nothing more than to simply black out and escape this insanity. But then, impossibly, Julio's mammoth paws clamped down on my shoulders with surprising gentleness. He pulled me in close until our faces were mere inches apart. "Listen to me, little man," he rumbled, his rancid breath hot on my face. "You keep your nose clean, you hear? No more sniffing around what don't concern you." I could only nod weakly, my voice failing me completely as I stared up into those obsidian eyes. Julio glanced over his shoulder at the goons who had been roughing me up. In a booming voice, he barked a long stream of rapid-fire Spanish. The few words I caught, pendejo, respeto, and cabron, didn't need any translation. When he finished, the bodybuilder wheeled back to face me once more. "You're under my protection now. Você me ouviu? Nobody better lay a finger on you again." With that, he gave my shoulders a fierce shake, then released me with a hard shove backwards. I stumbled, barely keeping my footing as Julio turned and stomped back down the hallway, his crew scrambling out of his path like roaches. I stood there, legs trembling, utterly dumbfounded by what had just occurred. The biggest badass cocaine dealer in town had essentially just made me his little protégé. Shit was getting way too crazy at Marina Palms. After that wild hallway scene with Julio and his goons, things took a seriously bizarre turn. Anytime I saw the hulking coke kingpin around the complex, he'd actually give me a little nod or wave, like we were old pals or something. A couple times I was out by the pool and Julio strolled up, ripped as hell in just a pair of swim trunks. Rather than lay into me, he simply clapped a meaty paw on my shoulder. "Todo bien, amigo," he'd rumble with an amicable gleam in those cold, black eyes. I'd just mutely nod, still half expecting him to snap and beat me senseless at any second. But the beats never came. In fact, bizarre as it was, Julio seemed to be making an effort to be friendly. Well, as friendly as a hardened criminal coke supplier can be, I guess. Like there was this one time I was out grabbing food from the taco truck that park out front. Suddenly, Julio's huge frame emerged from the shadows, nearly making me choke on my burrito. "Tranquilo, tranquilo," he said with a disarming chuckle, slapping me on the back so hard I damn near folded in half. "Just saying hello to the little man." With that, he turned and lumbered off into the night, whistling some sort of jaunty tune. I stood there, food forgotten, trying to process what the actual hell was happening. I'd gone from dodging Julio's wrath to somehow ending up his own personal little pet project. Maybe he saw some sort of protégé potential in me? Or, hell, maybe I just amused him on some level. Either way, the dude's approval was about the last thing I ever expected to get after that first disastrous encounter. In the end, I learned to just go with the flow and appreciate that the biggest badass in town was, for whatever reason, watching my back. Julio gave a new meaning to the term friends in crazy places.